The blood wasn't supposed to be there. Marcus Kane stared at his hands, calloused, steady hands that had defused bombs in Kandahar and stitched wounds in field hospitals, now trembling as crimson drops fell from his fingertips onto the courthouse. His steps, but it wasn't his blood, it was Titan's. The German shepherd lay motionless in the back of his pickup truck, chest rising and falling in shallow, desperate gasps. 3 hours ago, Titan had been chasing tennis balls in the park. Now half, his skull was caved in, his left eye swollen shut, and his hind legs refused to move. "Sir, you need to step away from the vehicle." The deputy's voice sounded like it was coming through water. Marcus couldn't process the words. All he could see was the moment it happened. The roar of motorcycle engines, the flash of metal chains, Titan's confused yelp as the first blow connected. The way his dog had looked at him afterward, not understanding why his human hadn't protected him. "Sir?" Marcus finally looked up. The deputy was young, maybe 25, with that fresh-faced earnestness that hadn't been beaten out of him yet. Behind him stood 3 more officers, hands resting on their holsters. Not threatening exactly, but ready. "I called it in," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "I'm the one who called it in. We know, Mr. Kane, but right now we need you to step back while the paramedics—" "He's not dead." The words came out sharper than Marcus intended. "He's not dead, so don't you dare treat him like evidence." The deputy exchanged glances with his partner. Marcus caught the look, the same one he'd seen in Baghdad when locals brought in their wounded. Pity mixed with professional detachment. The look that said, "We've seen this before and it doesn't end well." But they hadn't seen Titan leap through a window to pull a drowning kid from a river. They hadn't watched him refuse to eat for 3 days when Marcus came home from his first deployment, just sitting by the door waiting for a return that might never come. They didn't know that this dog had saved Marcus's life more times than he could count, not in combat, but in the quiet moments afterward when the darkness tried to swallow him whole. A paramedic approached, a woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. She knelt beside the truck bed, and Marcus watched her face change as she saw Titan's injuries. Her professional mask slipped for just a second, revealing something raw and angry underneath. "Jesus," she whispered, then caught herself. "I mean, how long ago did this happen?" 47 minutes, Marcus had been counting. "I got here as fast as I could, but the traffic on 5th Street—" "You did good," she said, already working. "You kept pressure on the head wound, kept him warm. That probably saved his life." "Probably." Marcus closed his eyes and was back in the park. Titan had been off-leash, something they weren't supposed to do, but the dog needed to run, needed to feel free after weeks of physical therapy for his hip dysplasia. Marcus had been watching a group of kids play soccer when the bikes roared into the parking lot. 5 of them. Black leather, death's head patches, chains hanging from their belts like medieval weapons. The Reapers, a local club that had been making noise about territory disputes and unpaid debts. Marcus had dealt with their type before, but never here. Never in the one place that was supposed to be safe. The leader, a mountain of a man with a beard down to his chest, had pointed directly at Marcus. "That's him. That's the soldier boy who's been asking questions." Titan had sensed the threat. Immediately. The dog moved between Marcus and the bikers, not aggressive, just protective, a living shield of muscle and loyalty. That's when the chains came out. "Sir?" The paramedic's voice pulled him back to the present. "We need to transport him now. Which vet clinic do you prefer?" Marcus rattled off the address of the emergency animal hospital across town, the only place that stayed open 24 hours, the only place that might be able to put his dog back together. As they loaded Titan into the ambulance, the shepherd's good eye found Marcus's face. In that gaze, Marcus saw something that made his stomach clench with guilt, trust. After everything that had happened, after failing to protect him, Titan still trusted him. The deputy approached again as the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing but no sirens. They never used sirens for animals. "Mr. Kane, I know this is difficult, but we need to ask you some questions." "I already told the dispatcher everything." "I understand, but 5 men, Harley Davidsons, mostly sportsters except for the leader, who rode a fat boy. Black leather cuts with the Reapers logo. They were waiting for us." The deputy's pen stopped moving. "Waiting?" Marcus nodded, still watching the ambulance disappear around the corner. This wasn't random. They knew I'd be there. They knew about Titan. He turned to face the officer, and something in his expression made the young man take a step back. Which means someone told them. Mr. Kane, if you're suggesting that someone in the department, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you that 4 hours ago, only 3 people knew I was taking Titan to Riverside Park for his exercise routine. Me, Dr. Martinez at the vet clinic, and whoever I filed my therapy dog registration update with last week. Marcus's voice was getting quieter, more controlled, the kind of quiet that made smart people nervous. So, unless my dog's veterinarian moonlights as a biker, we have a problem. The deputy was scribbling furiously now, probably documenting everything for the report that would disappear into a filing cabinet somewhere. Marcus had seen it before: military dogs injured overseas, paperwork that vanished, cases that went cold for lack of evidence. But this time was different. This time Marcus wasn't a soldier following orders. This time he was just a man who loved his dog, and someone had taken that away from him. We'll investigate thoroughly, Mr. Kane. I promise you that. Marcus nodded. But he was already walking back to his truck, empty now except for the bloodstains on the tailgate and the torn piece of Titan's collar that had caught on the metal edge. He picked up the fabric, navy blue with silver reflective stitching, and felt something crack inside his chest. Not break. Crack. Like ice under pressure, still holding, but changed forever. The deputy called after him. Mr. Kane? Where are you? Going. Marcus climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. Through the windshield, he met the officer's eyes one last time. To find out who wants my dog dead, he said, and why. As he pulled away from the courthouse, Marcus caught a glimpse of something in his rearview mirror that made his blood run cold. A black Harley-Davidson fat boy parked across the street, its rider watching everything through mirrored sunglasses. The same bike, the same man who had given the order. Marcus reached for his phone to call it in, but when he looked back, the motorcycle was gone, like it had never been there at all, like a ghost that only appeared when someone was about to die. The smell of antiseptic always brought Marcus back to that field hospital outside Mosul, but today it carried something different, the metallic tang of his own failure. He sat in the veterinary waiting room, still wearing the same blood-stained clothes from 3 hours ago, watching the receptionist try not to stare at him. The TV in the corner droned on about local traffic and weather, but all Marcus could hear was the echo of chains hitting bone. How did it come to this? The answer lived in a cardboard box under his bed: discharge papers, medical records, and a single photograph of a skinny German shepherd puppy with ears too big for his head. Titan hadn't always been his. 4 years ago, the dog belonged to Staff Sergeant Danny Reeves, Marcus's best friend and the only person who understood why Marcus volunteered for every dangerous mission that came their way. Danny had found the puppy abandoned outside a bombed-out school in Kandahar. "Look at this little fighter," he'd said, cradling the trembling ball of fur against his vest. "Survived 3 days in the rubble, probably living off rainwater and courage." The name came naturally. Titan, not because of his size, but because of his spirit. Even as a puppy, he refused to back down from anything. Rats twice his size, stray cats, even the unit's explosive detection dog, a massive Belgian Malinois who tolerated no disrespect from newcomers. Marcus remembered the night everything changed. A routine patrol that turned into an ambush, Danny, caught in the open with no cover, and insurgents closing in from 3 sides. Marcus had been pinned down behind a concrete barrier, watching his friend's position get overrun, when a streak of brown and black fur flew past his peripheral vision. Titan, barely 6 months old and weighing maybe 40 pounds, had somehow escaped from the base and tracked them through 2 miles of hostile territory. The puppy launched himself at the nearest gunman, not with any tactical training, just pure protective instinct. The distraction lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it was enough for Danny to reach cover. 3 seconds that saved a life. 2 weeks. Later, Danny stepped on an IED while clearing a building. Marcus held him as he died, promised to take care of the dog that had tried so hard to save them both. That was 4 years ago. Since then, Titan had grown into everything Danny had seen in that abandoned puppy, fierce, loyal, and absolutely fearless. He'd completed military working dog training in record time, specialized in explosive detection, and deployed twice more before Marcus's discharge. But the real training happened in the quiet moments. When Marcus woke up screaming from nightmares, Titan was there, a warm weight across his chest that anchored him to the present. When the crowds felt too close and the world too loud, Titan would position himself between Marcus and the chaos, creating a bubble of calm in the storm. The dog had saved Marcus's life more times than any medal could account for, and today Marcus had failed to return the favor. Mr. Kane, the veterinarian, emerged from the surgical suite, still wearing scrubs splattered with blood that Marcus recognized. Dr. Sarah Chen was small and efficient, with surgeon's hands and eyes that had seen too much suffering to pretend. Everything would be fine. How is he? Dr. Chen sat down across from him, the gesture that medical professionals used when they had complicated news to deliver. He's alive. That's the good news. Marcus waited for the rest. The head trauma was severe skull fracture, brain swelling, damage to his left eye. We've stabilized the swelling, but... She paused, choosing her words carefully. The neurological damage is extensive. Even if he recovers, he may never be the same dog you knew. What does that mean exactly? Cognitive function, motor skills, possibly his personality. Brain injuries are unpredictable, especially traumatic ones. He might not recognize you when he wakes up. He might not remember his training, his name, even how to eat. Marcus felt something hollow open up in his chest. But he'll live? If he makes it through the next 48 hours, yes. But Mr. Kane, Dr. Chen leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. You need to prepare yourself for the possibility that the dog you get back won't be the dog you lost today. She left him alone with that thought, promising to call if anything changed. Marcus sat in the empty waiting room as evening turned to night, thinking about the last conversation he'd had with Danny before the explosion. They'd been talking about home, the lives they'd build when their deployment ended. Danny wanted to open a motorcycle repair shop in some small town where everybody knew your name, and nobody asked too many questions about the scars. Marcus just wanted quiet, a place where Titan could run off leash, and the only explosions were 4th of July fireworks. Promise me something, Danny had said. If anything happens to me, don't let them put him down. He's got too much fight left in him. Marcus had made that promise without thinking. Now, sitting in a veterinary clinic at midnight, he wondered if keeping Titan alive was mercy or cruelty. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your dog was just the beginning. Stop asking questions or the next beating won't be so gentle. Marcus stared at the message until the screen went dark, then looked up at the security camera in the corner of the waiting room. Someone was watching. Someone wanted him to know they were watching. He thought about the Reapers, about the perfectly timed ambush in the park, about the motorcycle that had appeared and vanished outside the courthouse. This wasn't about unpaid debts or territorial disputes. This was personal. But why? Marcus had been home for 8 months, keeping his head down, going to therapy, trying to build something resembling a normal life. He worked part-time at a local security company, mostly boring corporate gigs that paid the bills and didn't require him to think too hard. He hadn't made enemies, hadn't gotten involved in anything more dangerous than helping his elderly neighbor fix her garbage disposal. Except that memory hit him like cold water. 3 weeks ago, he'd been working security at a charity fundraiser downtown, some kind of veterans benefit, hosted by a local businessman named Richard Voss. Marcus had been stationed by the VIP entrance, mostly watching for crashers and keeping the peace, when he'd overheard something that made his blood run cold. 2 men in expensive suits talking quietly by the bar about shipping containers and product delays. Nothing unusual, except one of them mentioned coordinates that Marcus recognized, the exact location where Danny's unit had been ambushed 4 years ago. Marcus had started paying attention then, following the conversation as the men moved through the crowd. They were discussing a cleanup operation that had gone wrong, evidence that needed to disappear, and someone named the Shepherd who was asking too many questions. At the time, Marcus had assumed they were talking about another veteran, maybe someone investigating war profiteering or contractor fraud. It wasn't uncommon. Lots of soldiers came home with questions about missions that didn't make sense, equipment, failures that seemed suspicious, friends who died for reasons that felt hollow. But sitting in this waiting room, with Titan fighting for his life and threats coming through his phone, Marcus realized the terrible truth. The shepherd wasn't some other veteran, the shepherd was him, and somehow, without knowing it, he'd stumbled into something that people were willing to kill for. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Dr. Chen. He's awake. Room 3. Marcus found Titan lying on his side in a recovery cage, his head wrapped in white bandages that made him look like a war casualty. Which Marcus supposed he was. The dog's right eye, the good one, tracked Marcus's movement as he approached, but there was something different in that gaze. Something lost. "Hey, boy," Marcus whispered, reaching through the cage bars. "I'm here." Titan's tail twitched, barely perceptible, but there. But recognition maybe, or just muscle memory. Marcus chose to believe it was recognition. "I'm going to find who did this to you," he said, stroking the dog's uninjured ear. "I'm going to find them, and I'm going to make them pay." Titan's eye closed, but his breathing seemed steadier now, like he understood, like he was holding on just long enough for Marcus to keep the promise he should have made 4 years ago. The promise to protect the ones who couldn't protect themselves, even if it killed him. The first sign that Marcus was being watched came at 3:17 a.m. when Titan's monitors started going crazy. Dr. Chen had allowed Marcus to sleep in the clinic's family room, a cramped space with a fold-out couch and motivational posters about pet wellness. He'd been drifting in and out of nightmares when the alarm jolted him awake. Through the thin walls, he could hear medical equipment beeping frantically and voices calling for assistance. Marcus rushed to the recovery room to find Titan standing. In his cage, hackles raised, staring at the window with an intensity that made Marcus's skin crawl. The dog's bandaged head was cocked at an angle that suggested he was listening to something beyond human hearing. "What's wrong with him?" Marcus asked as Dr. Chen checked the monitors. His heart rate spiked to 180, blood pressure through the roof, but his vitals are actually better than they've been all night. She frowned at the readouts. It's like something triggered his fight-or-flight response, but instead of panicking, he went into protection mode. Marcus looked at the window. The blinds were closed, but thin strips of parking lot light leaked through the gaps. Nothing visible, nothing obvious, but Titan knew something was out there. "Has this happened before with other patients?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "Military working dogs sometimes have PTSD reactions to unexpected sounds, fireworks, backfiring. Cars? But this is different. He's not afraid. He's alert." Marcus approached the cage slowly. Titan's good eye tracked his movement, but the dog's attention remained focused on the window. Whatever was out there, it wasn't friendly. "Can I take him outside just for a minute?" "Absolutely not. He's barely 12 hours post-surgery, and his skull fracture. He needs to know I'm here, that I'm not abandoning him." Marcus's voice carried an edge of desperation. "Please, 5 minutes." Dr. Chen studied his face, probably seeing something. That reminded her why she'd become a veterinarian in the first place. 5 minutes, I'll get a wheelchair." They wheeled Titan out to the clinic's small garden area, a patch of grass surrounded by tall fences, designed for animals recovering from surgery. The moment they hit the fresh air, Titan's entire body language shifted. His ears perked up, nose twitching as he processed a symphony of scents invisible to Marcus. Then he started to growl. It was a sound Marcus had only heard once before, in Kandahar, when Titan detected an IED that their equipment had missed. Low, controlled, absolutely certain. The growl of a dog who knew danger was close. Marcus followed Titan's gaze to the fence line, where shadows from the parking lot created a maze of dark corners. For a moment, nothing. Then a flash of movement, too quick to be human, too deliberate to be an animal. "Dr. Chen, get inside now. What's wrong?" "Someone's watching us." She started to protest, but Marcus was already moving, pushing Titan's wheelchair toward the clinic entrance. Behind them, he heard the distinctive rumble of motorcycle engines starting up. Multiple bikes, powerful ones, moving away into the night. Back inside, Marcus called the police. The responding officer was the same young deputy from the courthouse, Officer Bradley, according to his name tag. He walked the perimeter with a flashlight, checking for signs of intrusion, but found nothing concrete. A few cigarette butts by the fence, tire marks in the gravel that could have been from anyone. "Could be kids," Bradley said, but his voice carried doubt. "Sometimes they hang out behind commercial buildings looking for trouble." "Kids don't ride Harleys," Marcus replied, "and they don't stake out veterinary clinics at 3 in the morning." Bradley wrote down the details, but Marcus could see the skepticism in his eyes. Without physical evidence or witnesses, this would go into a file and disappear. Just like the incident at the park would probably disappear. After the officer left, Marcus sat next to Titan's cage thinking about patterns. The attack at the park, the message on his phone, now surveillance at the clinic. Someone wanted him scared, wanted him to make mistakes, but they'd made a mistake of their own. They'd revealed that this was bigger than simple revenge. If the Reapers just wanted to hurt him, they wouldn't need to watch his every move. They were waiting for something, or protecting something. Marcus pulled out his phone and started making calls. First to his old unit commander, Colonel Harrison, now retired and working as a military contractor in Virginia. The call went to voicemail, not surprising at 4 a.m. But Marcus left a message asking about Danny's death, about any irregularities in the incident report. Next, he called Tommy Valdez, a former explosive ordnance specialist who'd served with both Marcus and Danny. Tommy was living in Denver now, working construction, and trying to drink away memories that wouldn't fade. He answered on the 4th ring. "Jesus, Kane, do you know what time it is?" "Tommy, I need you to think back to Kandahar. Danny's last mission. The building where he stepped on the IED. Do you remember anything strange about it?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Why are you asking about this now?" "Because someone just put my dog in the hospital and I think it's connected to what happened over there." More silence. Marcus could hear the wheels turning, Tommy's mind working through the haze of whatever he'd been drinking. "There was something," Tommy said finally. "The building was supposed to be empty. Intel said it had been abandoned for months. But when we went in, it looked lived in. Recent food, warm ashes in the fire pit, like someone had cleared out fast." "Did you report it?" "Danny did. Made a big deal about it, actually. Said the mission felt like a setup, like someone wanted us in that building." Tommy's voice got quieter. Command told him to shut up and follow orders. 3 days later, boom. Marcus felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "Who gave you the mission parameters?" "Some contractor liaison, civilian. Fancy suit, never been in country before. What was his name?" Tommy paused, thinking. "Voss. Richard Voss. The same Richard Voss who'd hosted the charity fundraiser where Marcus overheard the conversation about the shepherd. The same man whose event had triggered whatever chain of events led to Titan lying broken in a veterinary cage. "Tommy, I need you to do something for me. Contact anyone you can from the old unit, guys who served with Danny and me. Ask them if they've had any problems lately. Accidents, threats, anything unusual. Marcus, what the hell have you gotten yourself into?" "I don't know yet, but I think Danny's death wasn't random, and I think someone's trying to make sure I don't figure that out." After hanging up, Marcus sat in the dark clinic, listening to the steady rhythm of Titan's breathing. The dog was sleeping now, but even unconscious, his ears twitched at every sound. Still protecting, still alert. Marcus thought about the coordinates he'd overheard at the fundraiser, the exact location where Danny died, about shipping containers and product delays, about a clean-up operation that had gone wrong. What if Danny's unit had stumbled onto something they weren't supposed to see? What if the IED wasn't placed by insurgents, but by someone who needed to cover their tracks? His phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. "Just heard from Rodriguez. His house burned down last week. Electrical fire. Ann Peterson, car accident 3 days ago. He's alive but barely." Another text. "Kane, whatever this is, they're cleaning house. Watch your back." Marcus looked at Titan, still wrapped in bandages, still fighting to heal. The dog had tried to protect him in the park, had nearly died for it. Now Marcus understood why. Titan hadn't just been defending his handler from random bikers. He'd been defending him from killers who were systematically eliminating everyone who might know the truth about what happened in Kandahar. And somehow, Marcus had painted a target on both their backs by overhearing the wrong conversation. At the wrong time, his phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus Kane, the voice was smooth, professional, familiar. Who is this? My name is Richard Voss. I believe we need to talk. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. About what? About your dog. About your friend Danny. About some very dangerous questions you've been asking. A pause. I'm not your enemy, Mr. Kane, but if you keep digging into things that are better left buried, I won't be able to protect you much longer. The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, then at Titan, then at the window where someone had been watching them just hours ago. Protection, or threat, warning or manipulation. In the morning he would start looking for answers. But right now, with his dog fighting for his life and enemies circling in the dark, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to hide. He was going to war. The meeting with Richard Voss took place in a coffee shop downtown, the kind of aggressively normal place where suburban mothers discussed soccer schedules and college students typed earnestly on laptops. Marcus chose a corner table with clear sight lines to all exits, old habits that had kept him alive in worse places than this. Voss arrived exactly on time, looking like every other middle-aged businessman in the city. Expensive suit, silver hair, confident handshake, the kind of man who attended charity fundraisers and got his picture in the local paper for supporting veterans' causes. Thank you for coming, Voss said, settling into the chair across from Marcus. I know this situation. Must be confusing. Cut the crap, Marcus replied. What do you want? Voss smiled, the practiced expression of someone used to dealing with difficult people. I want to help you understand what you've stumbled into, and I want to offer you a way out. He slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were photographs, documents, shipping manifests with official-looking stamps. Marcus recognized some of the locations, forward operating bases where he'd been stationed, supply routes his unit had patrolled. Your friend Danny discovered something he shouldn't have, Voss continued. A private logistics operation that was bending certain regulations to expedite supply deliveries to combat zones. Marcus looked up from the documents. You're talking about war profiteering. I'm talking about saving lives. Do you know how many soldiers died waiting for armor upgrades, medical supplies, ammunition? The official procurement process was a joke. Months of bureaucracy while men like you were getting killed by IEDs that better equipment could have prevented. The folder contained more photos now, soldiers in body armor, convoys with upgraded vehicles, field hospitals with state-of-the-art equipment, all bearing corporate logos Marcus didn't recognize. We found ways to cut through the red tape, Voss said. Unofficial channels, alternative shipping routes. Yes, we made money, but we also saved thousands of American lives. Marcus felt something, twist in his stomach. And Danny found out about it. Danny found one of our temporary storage facilities. He started asking questions about equipment that wasn't in his unit's official inventory. Questions that could have shut down operations that were keeping his fellow soldiers alive. Voss leaned forward, his voice taking on an urgent tone. We tried to explain it to him, tried to bring him into the operation officially. But he was young, idealistic. He thought he'd uncovered some massive conspiracy instead of a group of patriots trying to work around a broken system. So you killed him. We didn't kill anyone, Voss's voice hardened. Danny died because he was investigating buildings he shouldn't have been in following leads that put him in danger. The IED that killed him was placed by actual insurgents. We have intelligence reports to prove it. More documents, after-action reports, intelligence summaries, even satellite imagery showing insurgent movement in the area. All of it looked official, legitimate. Marcus stared at the evidence, feeling his certainty crumble. Then why are people trying to kill me? Because some of the people involved in that operation have moved on to less patriotic endeavors. When you started asking questions at my fundraiser, it spooked them. They think you're investigating the current operation, not the old one. What current operation? Voss hesitated, then pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a news article from 3 months ago. Local motorcycle club linked to drug trafficking ring. The photo showed several men in Reaper's colors being led away, in handcuffs. The same routes we used to move legitimate supplies are now being used to move drugs. The same contacts, the same logistics network, but it's not us, Mr. Kane. We got out of that business years ago. Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. A different pattern than he'd expected, but one that made sense. The Reapers work for whoever took over your operation. Some of our former associates, yes, men who saw the profit potential and decided to expand into more lucrative markets. Voss closed the folder. When you started asking questions about Danny's death, they panicked. They thought you were an investigator, maybe DEA or military intelligence. And my dog? A warning that got out of hand. The men they hired aren't. Known for subtlety. Marcus sat back, processing everything. It felt true, or at least partly true. The kind of bureaucratic corruption that happened in every war. The type of grey area profiteering that everyone knew about, but nobody talked about. Danny wouldn't have been the first soldier to stumble onto something like this. What do you want? From me? Marcus asked finally. Stop digging, let the past stay buried. Your friend died a hero, let that be his legacy. And in return... Voss pulled out another envelope. Medical bills for your dog, covered in full, plus compensation for your trauma and lost wages. The check was for $50,000, more money than Marcus had seen since his discharge. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? Marcus thought about Titan, still fighting to recover from injuries that might have been prevented if Marcus had just minded his own business. About the nightmares that were getting worse, about the threats that kept coming. I want it to stop. I want to take my dog home and forget this ever happened. Voss nodded. That can be arranged. The men who attacked your dog will be dealt with, arrested on unrelated charges, sent away for a long time. You'll never see them again. You can guarantee that? I have connections in law enforcement. Good men who understand that sometimes justice requires creative solutions. Voss stood up, straightening his tie. Go home, Mr. Kane. Take care of your dog. Let the dead rest in peace. After Voss left, Marcus sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at the check and the folder full of documents. Everything felt too neat, too convenient. But maybe that was just paranoia talking. Maybe sometimes the simplest explanation was the right one. He called Dr. Chen to check on Titan. The news was cautiously optimistic. Swelling was down, brain function tests were showing improvement. The dog might never be exactly the same, but he would survive. He would be able to come home. That night, Marcus actually slept for 6 straight hours without nightmares. The first real rest he'd had since the attack. When he woke up, the threats had stopped coming. No mysterious motorcycles outside his apartment. No cigarette butts by his mailbox. For 3 days, everything was quiet. Normal. Marcus started to believe that maybe Voss had been telling the truth. Then Tommy called. Kane, you need to get out of town. Now. What? Why? Rodriguez is dead. Peterson died in the hospital yesterday, and I just found out that Colonel Harrison never made it home from that fishing trip he took last week. Marcus felt the world tilt sideways. What are you talking about? They're killing everyone who served with Danny. Everyone who might know something about that mission. I'm heading to Canada tonight. My cousin has a cabin up there where I can lay low. Tommy, slow down. Who's they? I don't know, but it's not just bikers anymore. Rodriguez's house fire, started by a professional incendiary device. Peterson's car accident. His brake lines were cut, and Harrison, Tommy's voice cracked. They found him in the lake, weighted down. Marcus's mind raced. That's impossible. Voss said they were handling it, that the threats would stop. Voss? Tommy's voice turned cold. Richard Voss, the contractor who gave us that last mission. Yeah, I met with him. He explained everything, said it was just war profiteering gone wrong, that... Kane, listen to me very carefully. Richard Voss died in a car accident in Germany 2 years ago. I saw the obituary myself. The phone slipped from Marcus's numb fingers, clattering onto his kitchen floor. Through his apartment window, he could see a black sedan parked across the street that hadn't been there an hour ago. 2 men in suits sat in the front seat watching his building. Marcus grabbed his gun, his keys, and the folder Voss had given him. Whatever was in those documents, real or fake, Someone had killed his friends to keep it secret, and now they were coming for him. He was halfway to his truck when he realized the terrible truth. In 3 days of feeling safe, of believing that his threat was over, he hadn't once checked on Titan. The clinic was only 10 minutes away, but as Marcus raced through the city streets, those 10 minutes felt like a lifetime. Because he knew, with the sick certainty of a man who'd been played by professionals, that his dog was either already dead or about to be, the bait to make sure Marcus came running straight into their trap. The veterinary clinic was too quiet. Marcus knew it the moment he pulled into the parking lot at 11:47 p.m. The building should have had lights on in the emergency wing, night staff moving around, the soft hum of medical equipment keeping injured animals alive. Instead, darkness. Complete unnatural silence. He sat in his truck for 30 seconds, engine running, every instinct screaming at him to drive away. This was a trap, had to be, but Titan was inside that building, and Marcus couldn't abandon him. Not again. The front door was unlocked. The first sign that everything had gone wrong. Marcus moved through the empty hallways with his pistol drawn, clearing corners like he was back in Kandahar. Emergency lighting cast everything in sick yellow shadows, making the motivational posters about pet wellness look like something from a horror movie. He found Dr. Chen first. She was slumped over her desk in the main office, a coffee cup still, steaming next to her keyboard. For a terrifying moment, Marcus thought she was dead. Then he saw the slow,